Hey everybody, it's Mr. Strength again, and I'm here to talk to you about typographic contrast. Believe me, you are going to be so glad you watched this video, okay? Typographic contrast is really my way of making you guys break out of your comfort zones of what you think you're supposed to do, okay? This is, we're problem solvers, so we got to do things in a way that it solves the problem, but at the same time, creates what we need in the end. So I'm going to go over the lesson real quick, and then I'm going to show you a couple things that will help you out along the way. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. We are going to share this screen. All right, let's take a look at typographic contrast. What is typography and how does it affect your design? So that's something about what we do as designers that's different than everybody else, is that we control typography. We control the fonts, we control the way things look. And we also look at things in a different way, okay? So, first, what is typography? Typography is the art of arranging text to make it visually appealing, clear, and readable, which is really important unless you don't need it to be read. It involves choosing typefaces, font styles, line lengths, line spacing, letter spacing, and more. The goal of typography is to convey a message, specific message, and invoke certain emotions. And this can be done. There are a lot of psychological aspects when it comes to typography and how we create things. Um, Here, what they're showing you, I just want to go over a few things. So, letter spacing is the space between the letters. There's something later that you guys might run across. It's called kerning, and kerning is how you adjust the space between two letters. Cap height is the caps. Anything that goes above this base height of a lowercase, like for example, the top of this F, this is called an ascender. They have it down here on the word typeface. It's an ascender. It ascends above the baseline of, what every other letter commonly goes to. Below, like the P and the Y here, this is called a descender. So be very careful that ascenders and descenders don't interfere with each other. That's referred to as your line spacing, and that's the space between lines of text. It is also referred to as, my brain is about to forget, leading. Woo! Yeah, so the space between lines of text is referred to as leading. Okay. Took me a moment, I know. And then there's going to be some other stuff that we talk about. So for example, well, we'll get into them. They happen down there. So we're going to talk about the seven principles of typography or typographic contrast. There was a late Canadian, late meaning dead, Canadian typographer. And yes, that really is a job, but it's more of a strength that you tend to have. His name is Carl Dare, and he showed how in typography, just like in music, harmony and contrast are keys to composition. All right. Graphic form and musical form have a common denominator, and that's rhythm and emphasis, harmony and contrast. Harmony and contrast, says Dare, are fundamental to both, and the discovery of these basic principles and their application to the design of printed matter. The dude apparently didn't really get good at explaining English stuff. Okay, basically what he means is that harmony and contrast are the base to typographic rhythm as well as typographic emphasis. So there's a harmony and a contrast that goes inside. We're going to look at the different principles. So that's what we're about to delve into. So the first one is size. Size is the most obvious, and you can look over here at a really great example, different sizes. And in fact, if you actually follow it, this is how hierarchy works. So the S is the first one that you see, then the I, then the Z, then the E, right? So keeping that stuff in mind, we are going to, okay, so size is the most obvious and basic factor that matters in creating the type of contrast. It requires a simple method, yet gives a powerful effect. The contrast in size contributes to creating a visual hierarchy that guides readers' attentions. Whoops. Eventually, it will lead readers to go from the most critical information to the less important and trivial information. For instance, when you enlarge the text size, such as a headline, like here where it says size, The reader will notice that part first, since it becomes the focal point, just like up here, size of contrast, or contrast of size. On the other hand, if we reduce the text size, for example, an image description or caption, the text will be unnoticeable. So if we look at what we have here, because this actually is how hierarchy works, we have contrast of size. This is the title of the slide, and then I have information here for you. Then down here, size is known to be the first and most basic, okay, it's the same thing I just basically put over here, but it's some like really simple. So looking at this example, we see the word size, and then we see the word size. So size does matter because you can actually direct individuals based on the size of the text, and you can direct them in the flow of information. Contrast of weight. Now, weight has to do with the thickness of a font, okay? So a new aspect of typographic contrast is weight. Weight means the thickness or thinness of a letter form. So as designers, we don't say something is bold necessarily. That's something completely different. But the weight is how thick or thin that letter or that font is. You can create a vast distinction by changing the weight if you use the same typeface style. Moreover, the variation between thin and thick font weights can give different emphasis, meaning, or vibe. So we are talking about, you know, heavy, bold, semi-bold, medium, and regular. Then into thin, can ultra thin, and so on. For example, the heavy text could invoke an impactful mood of persuasion, alertness, and attraction. Attraction meaning, look, over here, contrast of weight, that's a title. Therefore, the heavyweight text fit for headlines, headings, keywords, or words that need specific or special attention. However, the too heavy text might reduce your design's readability. And this is true. If it gets too heavy or too thick, you might not know if it's an E or a C or an O, okay? Next is contrast of form. And as you can see from the example, we have all different types of A's over here, capital, lowercase, as well, or uppercase and lowercase, as well as we have different types of font styles, or font families. Sorry, the name of a font is actually a font family. You can build a contrast in your typography design by playing around with the form or choosing different fonts. Generally, form refers to the basic shape of the letter form. For instance, there is a difference between uppercase letters and lowercase. Like I mentioned already. Oh my God, it's like I know what I'm talking about, right? The composition of Roman letters and italics or oblique variants. So here's a fun thing I'm going to tell you. Oblique, while it claims to be its own thing, oblique and italic are basically the same thing, okay? Um, the combination of Roman letters and italic and oblique variants could also create contrast in typography. However, you have to avoid a combination of italics and oblique text, meaning you can't just have italics and obliques, you need to have one or the other. The reason behind this is that they have a similar shape. Hence, the combination of the two could create a conflict instead of a contrast. Basically because they look similar, but they aren't ideally similar. But what you can do, for example, if I am in here and I actually make this italicized, oh, look at that, it stands out. Holy cow, right? So using an italics or even making it bold makes it stands out even more, right? Whoops. So that's how that works. Or even changing the type of font that you're using because maybe you want to give it a certain look and feel. As you can see up here, I have what are called sans serif. And what I have down here is called a serif. And you know the difference between the two because serif fonts have these little kicks on the T's. They have the feet on the capital T's, and then I shouldn't really have used the T, sorry. But if you look, the F doesn't really have any feet on it, whereas it does over here. So that's the difference between a serif and a sans serif. Sans meaning not or none. Direction. Now, this is another thing. So, we're stepping out of something that we're really familiar with. So, the aspect of creating contrast is direction. All right. It refers to the orientation of the text, like vertical, horizontal, diagonal, even backwards. Using direction could build a dynamic effect and draw people's attention. So, for example, if you, even looking here at this whole setup of different lowercase b's or p's, they're actually b's. I know they are. Um, sorry, D as in direction. They become very appealing because they're all in different directions and they grab your attention, right? However, be careful with the vertical and diagonal directions. You may avoid using these positions for body text like this. This is called a body text. This is a title. This is a body text. This is a header. This is body text. And only use them for headlines, subheadings, and short messages since they would be harder to read. All right. So, something's a diagonal or if it's vertical on the side, it's a little tricky. So, it's like taking this, boop. If I'm going around in a circle, so, it's like we're gonna take this guy, we'll move him over here, and then we'll move this one kind of over here. It's got, oh, see, it's got some stuff there I gotta be really careful about. So yeah, let's oh, you know what? Let's just put this over here. We'll put this back. Yeah, there you go. Very Fantastic Four, right? And then I'm going to do this because body text does not need to be done that way. And look at that. It looks weird. I don't like it. So let's just put it back. But as you can see, having the title vertical drew your attention to it. So changing the direction something is could draw attention to a specific message. Structure, it's how we, put things together. And I really do want you to pay attention to the example it has here on the side. Structure refers to a typeface style that creates a different tone and mood and is an important factor of typographic contrast as well. Namely, sans serif, we just talked about that. Typefaces represent simplicity and modernity tone. They kind of do. It's actually very classic. And this body text, this is not. This is a serif, so this is sans serif up here at the top. It is very modern feeling because it, doesn't have a whole lot of flares to it, which are like what the serifs are. And it is very simple. It's very clean, right? Meanwhile, the traditional serif, this body, would suit an authoritative or formal mood. I don't know that authoritative is necessarily what I would say, but it's very much the formal or professional. Okay. You can also combine different styles of typeface to create an awesome contrast, like the combination between serif and sans serif fonts. Now, we generally will do this with sans serif being a header or a title piece, and then the body text as a serif. Why would we do that and not use a sans serif? I mean, it does happen occasionally, but the big reasoning behind it is there's a psychological study that was done decades ago that says serif fonts are actually easier for the human brain to read and to memorize and recall. So that's why a lot of times you see like textbooks, for example, will have a serif font. And why, sometimes you see magazines, it's carefree. So they'll put a sans serif in there because it's not really something that you're terribly concerned about. But the vast majority of the time, you will notice serif fonts. And I want you to take a look at magazines you look at newspapers, look at books. Okay. Next is color. Color is the J. I love it. Oh, well, let me go back up here real quick. So notice how they actually rearrange these letters to create some weird shape, right? I don't know what it is. Looks kind of crazy. I want to fidget. I want to make a fidget toy out of it. It's like a fidget thing. But it's actually taking a whole bunch of letters and creating just an image out of it. So that's something you can do with letters. Okay, color. Color is my jam. I love color. So color is a great way to make something pop out, right? So like if I wanted to do express over here, I could just change it to red. Boom. Look at that. Now you just see express, right? I could also go and change that color. Let's just say it's pretty much anything that's not black. Now we go into color theory, and that's something totally different. Red is the first color the brain recognizes. So, you can see here that I've changed the color and it does work. So that's actually what we're going to talk about. So color contrast allows you to convey more than what you want to express. Although color could produce contrast in your design, you must be aware of using it since using color for creating contrast can be tricky. And that's the thing, like we want to be careful. Do we want something to stand out? Because red and orange are going to stand out more than blue or green. And yellow is really hard to read against a white background. And same thing if you try to do like a dark gray or even a dark blue, dark purple against a black background, it's going to be a kind of a tricky thing to get to work. Whenever you want to use color to give contrast to your design, think carefully about picking and combining colors. The color should convey your brand's tone and identity while also delivering the message and maintaining readability. So we do want to be careful about the colors that we choose. Notice that 7 Up has white lettering on a green background. They don't really want the red there because red and green are complementary colors, which means they actually contrast each other, but not in a good way. It will make your brain fight to see one color over the other, and they go back and forth. So we do want to make sure that we're careful about that color choice because again, white text on a black background works, but dark gray on a black background doesn't work. Yellow doesn't really work on a white background. Black and a white background do work. Okay. So, you can see here from the example, they do the O's, the L, and the R. And especially that contrast of it getting lighter versus it being, I guess you could say darker, or intensity is really what this is, being intense, okay? Texture. Texture is really cool. The combination of size, weight, form, and structure in a block of text could create the contrast of texture with a more dynamic composition. Texture means how your typographic design will visually look at and up close and at a distance. So we want to be careful. I mean, look at this. They do a circular piece, it's just texture, and it looks like it's spinning down. But because the text gets smaller as it gets closer to the center, it makes it look like you're staring down a tunnel, right? It's the Twilight Zone. So the texture zone. So be really careful about that, okay? I wouldn't worry too much about texture, but it could definitely create some interesting contrast. But also size, can create some of that as well. All right, so here's your project. So those were just some examples. You're going to use different contrasts to create some interesting visuals. That's it. Okay. You're armed only with typography, which means you're only going to be able to use the specific letters, or in this case, numbers, that you are given. All right. You will use only 3 numbers, just 3, no more, no less, to create your visuals. All right. So the 3 numbers, here's how you're going to figure those out. So birthdays, the way we write them in the Western world is 2 month, 2 day, and then 4 numbers for the year. You're going to add the numbers for the month. So I gave an example down here. So this is my actual birthday. Yes, I'm old. Thank you for telling me. So my birthday is in October, which is 10. So that's a 1 and a 0. So we're going to add these 2 numbers together. 1 plus 0 is 1. Okay. Then you're going to add the 2 numbers for the day. So my date is 22nd. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So I have 1 and 4 so far. Then for the year, I don't care about the first part of the year. This part, don't care. We're going to look at the last 2 digits. All right. So for a lot of you, you're going to have the same numbers, and that's okay. So for me, it was 7 minus 8. So you're going to actually subtract these numbers. Now, I know 7 minus 8 is technically -1, but there's no negative numbers. Okay. So instead of -1, I want you just to use a positive. Okay. And I know someone's going to reach out, sir, I got a negative number. I understand, but it says it right there. No negative numbers. Okay. And yes, 0 is still a number. So, if your birthday, whoops, for whatever reason you end up with a 0, 0 is a number. Okay. So I'm going to want you to create 6 different layouts, just throwing your 3 numbers in there, and just use different types of contrast. You can use more than one type of contrast if you want. And I've given you examples to inspire you, but this is all about getting crazy. I want you all to just let it go. Just let's go, okay? If you look over here, this is 7. There's a 2. Now, what could this be? It could be a 0. I see a kick over here. Well, that's the 2. So maybe it's 702. It's just a 5 and a 5, okay? This is just to show you how like there's a mirror image going. Here's some examples. So we have 246, we have 353, we have 441. I don't care what order you put them in. They could be backwards. Technically your numbers could be 642. I don't care. It doesn't matter what order you put them in. I just want to see what they look like. Okay, here's 3. This is a 0. I just know because of how 4 and 3 look. So this looks good. This is 602, 702, 9. 7. This looks like it could be a 6, maybe a 9, maybe a 0. So, I want you all to go crazy with it, okay? So, you're going to go into Illustrator and you're going to create 6 artboards. Oh, what? But Mr. Strength, what is this? Well, let's take a look. All right, it popped up in a different screen. So here we go. This is how to add artboards into Illustrator. Okay. So this is a really basic feature and it's very helpful. So it does actually teach you how to go in and put multiple artboards into a document. So you can put all 6 of them into one document. And then that way you can turn in your assignment. So you're going to do 6. All right. And then under each artboard, I want you to put the font. Okay, I don't really need to see the numbers. We're going to change that up. Thank you for humoring me. And so I'm just going to take that out. There we go. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So the example is Minion Pro. I like Minion Pro. Guess what? This is not Minion Pro. It's a serif font. Then what I need you to do is I need you to outline the text. Why is that? Because I don't have all the fonts you have. I have a lot of fonts, but I don't have all of them. So I want you to outline them, and that makes them changes them from an actual text to an object that's just text shaped. You can change colors, you can stretch them out, you can deform them, you can rotate them. It's fine. Okay. Then I want you, and this actually tells you how to go through and set that up. I do explain on Macs and PCs both at the same time, so that'll make it easier for you. You're going to save your file. I need it to be an AI file because we're using Illustrator. And then you're going to put your first initial and your last name and then put the name of the assignment. So for example, I have my name, dash, and then the name of the assignment. Okay. Here's a pro tip. Y'all, seriously, this will help you throughout the entire program going forward. Use Google. Okay. We all do it. I do Google all the time, try to remember things, especially if it's a program I haven't used in a while. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't remember how to do this. I just go and do a quick Google search. So it's one of those, I'd rather you go Google things and try to figure it out because you're a problem solver before you come to me. Because if you're asking me the same question over and over again, that tells me you're not learning. But if you're constantly asking me questions and they're basic stuff, eventually I'm gonna do a video it will be entitled "Let me Google that for you." Okay, so feel free to use search engines just to help you out. It'll give you information. It's very helpful. It's what professionals do. Okay. So here we are at the end of the assignment. That's all you got to do. Relax, man. All I'm looking for you to do is to really play with things. If you, for example, want to make a red 6 that's got polka dots, put the polka dots on there, man. Make it that way. But this is for you to experiment, to step out. You really can't fail this assignment unless you just straight up don't do it. But as long as you're just throwing some numbers, the numbers that you come up with in there and you are arranging them to at least try to make it visually interesting. There you go. Look at where things can crisscross. Look at how things can bend together and touch. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. I think it's really fun. Don't get in your own head about this. Don't overthink it. Just relax. Okay. Look forward to seeing what you guys can create, and I'll see you in the classroom.